back to another election edition of Meet Victoria with Caleb Shaw, powered by ThriveFuel Digital Marketing. Guys, early voting is February 14th through the 25th, and Election Day is March 1st. Before we get going any further, I would like to introduce the next gentleman here. He's running for an office that I don't know much about, and so I'm excited to learn and get educated on this. So without further ado, my friend, if you wouldn't mind, please introduce yourself and then let them know a little bit about why you decided to run before we get into what that office is.
Sure. My name is Ysmael Fonseca, and I'm a former district court judge from Hidalgo County. I decided to get in the race for the 13th Court of Appeals because I was really tired of having the Court of Appeals rubber stamp bad decisions that happen at the trial court level. And having been a judge, I thought I had the skills and the talent necessary to make it to the next level and make that change that we need, especially as a conservative.
Yes, sir. So, and forgive me stepping on your words there. I want to kind of unpack all this because, admittedly, I don't know much about the justice for the 13th Court of Appeals. So, first off, what is the role of that court? You know, where does it fit in? You know, how do I end up there? If I go to court and I lose a decision, you know, how do I end up there?
Well, it's just an appeal from the trial court. So in Texas, we have 3 levels of courts. You have the trial courts at the county level. Then you have the option of appealing a decision that didn't go in your favor to the Court of Appeals. And then after that, if you don't like your decision at the Court of Appeals, then you can go to the Supreme Court, which hears the civil cases, or you can go to the Court of Criminal Appeals, which hears the criminal cases. So those are the 3 levels. The 13th Court of Appeals is that middle level of appeals court, and the 13th court covers 20 counties. So all the way from South Texas up the coastal bend, including Victoria, and they oversee what the trial court judges did. And then if you want to go further up, then you can do that. But very few cases actually make it to the Supreme Court or the Court of Criminal Appeals. So most of the decisions made are made at the 13th Court of Appeals level, which makes it very important to make sure that you have the right justices.
And what I did know is you guys are, if I use the correct terminology here, there's a panel of you guys. There's 6 justices, is that right?
Right.
Did I get that right?
There are 6 justices on the court, and every so often there's a mix of 3, a random assignment. So a panel of 3 judges from that 6 justice court is the one that gets to hear the case.
Got it. Where are those? Do they take how many districts did you say? 20 districts?
There's 20 counties.
And how do they pull you guys, like from, how does that even work?
It's completely random. It's done by the clerk of the court. She randomly assigns a panel to the case, and they're the ones that get to listen to it.
And how do you even qualify to be able to run for the 13th Court of Appeals? I doubt that's something you can go straight out of law school and go jump into that.
That's right. There are constitutional requirements. You do have to be over the age of 35, which I am. May not look like it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got that baby face. Good for you, man. Good for you. Yes, sir.
And you also have to be practicing. Well, now the constitutional amendment that passed this past November requires that you've been in practice 10 years or more, which I am. So,
you know, I wish I would have had this interview with you beforehand, because when I voted on that, I truly didn't really understand what I was voting for, you know, and it was one of those, okay, that sounds like a good thing, you know, but I didn't, until I've met you and gotten some insight to this, I didn't really truly understand what I was voting for. And so that's why I'm kind of excited to have you guys come on so I can learn about this office. And so what, then overall, so you've got this panel and then randomly they're assigned. And so when you guys rule on the lower court's decision, and let's say, I guess if you overturn it, it stops there, but let's say they don't like it, and then it goes to the Texas Supreme Court after that.
Right.
And from my understanding, this is a pretty overturned court, a liberal court inside of a conservative Texas.
Exactly. It's one of the most overturned courts, if not the most overturned court in Texas. There are 14 courts of appeal, and this is at the top on reversal levels. So, and it's because at this time, we have 4 Democrats and 2 Republicans out of the 6. And one of those Democrats is the one that's up for election. So it's an opportunity for Republicans to take over that seat and bring a balance of power to the court, which I believe will make a huge difference because, like I said earlier, they just rubber stamp what happens mostly in Democratic strongholds like Hidalgo County, where I'm from, and I know a lot about what goes on there. Those decisions affect Victoria as well. because if your trial court judges don't know that or know that the 13th Court of Appeals has bad law, then they're tied. Their hands are tied. So it's important that everybody take an interest in the Court of Appeals. I know that we have some good conservative judges in this northern part of the district, but the Court of Appeals sets the law, sets the tone for what happens here.
Gotcha. Yeah. You know, we're doing approximately 18 or so of these candidate interviews, and your race is one of the unique ones in the sense that, you know, there's all these hot items going on in the news right now. You turn it on, there's 3, 4, 5 things that are just every day the same thing.
Right.
Well, I can't really sit down and ask you guys like, hey, what would you do on this? Where do you line up on this? How would you do this? Because I'll let you explain why. Why can't I ask you all these questions and make this, like, use my questionnaire sheet from the other guys with you?
Right. Well, because if I start giving you an opinion about what I think about certain issues, topics, I'll end up predisposing a case. I'll be prejudging if something like that happens. Let's look at, for example, the vaccine and the mask mandates. That's something that if it comes through this court and I have to make a decision on it and I tell you I'm against the mandates, then I'm already making a decision without looking at the case. You have to look at the case itself. You have to look at the facts. You have to look at the law and then apply the law to those facts. So by me making my decision open or my opinion open, it may seem like, or people may think that I'm already prejudging the case, and then they can ask for me to be disqualified from hearing the case, which I'd say Republicans and conservatives don't want.
Yes, sir. And that's one of the things is, you know, as the public, I think there might be some confusion, is you guys are not, for lack of better terms, activists. Like,
right.
You should not be going out and, you know, your job, correct me if I'm wrong, is to interpret and rule on law,
right.
Not to create it or to, you know, that was some of the things on both sides that I get frustrated sometimes watching is, you know, the president or somebody will, you know, make a call.
Right.
And then it seems like it's a case is taken to a court where they'll get a friendly verdict to, you know, and it seems like you have all these judges that, I guess it's been a shift from the legislatures making laws to it seems like the judges are making laws everywhere now, and then all of a sudden you have the Supreme Court ruling on all this.
Right.
But that, again, correct me if I'm wrong, that's not really the role of a judge, is to be creating law and to be, your guys' job is to rule on it, right? Right.
It's just reading, and that's what differentiates a liberal judge from a conservative judge, and I've given a lot of talks on this topic, because there are two very different philosophies on how you read it. For example, you have liberal Democrats looking at the Constitution or the laws, and they like to read between the lines and look at the intention of the law, and see whether or not that kind of fits their narrative or the result that they want. So you're looking at it backwards. You're looking at this is the result I want, and let me see how I can fit the law into that particular result. A conservative philosophy, an originalist philosophy, which I prescribe to, is making sure you look at the law, you look at the Constitution, you look at exactly what it states, and that's what you apply. You don't read between the lines. If it doesn't have it in there, then it doesn't have it in there. It's not my job to fix the legislature's problems. If they were vague, if they weren't clear on what the law should be, it's for them to decide,
right,
to fix it. I just tell them, hey, this is not what the law does. You go back and you fix that. So
not like what that and I cannot think of his name, but the Supreme Court judge that for Obamacare, you know, he went in and miswrote it or rewrote it to make it a tax or whatever, and it was not the way that it was. You know, they wrote it, it wouldn't have gone through, and then the judge rewrote it to make it allowable. And I was so confused on that. I didn't understand why. That doesn't seem like the role of the judge to take like, right, you rule thumbs up, thumbs down, right, on it, not, well, here, let me take this paragraph out and add this one and change this around. There you go. Now it'll work. Like,
right. The law was written to make that the penalty for not participating in the insurance market, and he interpreted it as being a tax and therefore being within the powers of Congress to be able to tax. So that's how he saved Obamacare. But again, I wouldn't do that because that's not what the text of the
right,
law said. It didn't say it was a tax. It said it was a penalty.
Right.
So therefore, Congress didn't have the power under the taxing power to enact that law. So
yes,
that's the difference between the interpretation of the law. And I'm very much against those type of readings, of reading what you want it to be or what you think it should be. It is what it is.
Yes, sir.
Period.
Well, and you are running in the Republican primaries for
Correct.
this, and also from just an outsider's point of view, not being on the inside, what seems to be frustrating for the people on the right side of things is the left doesn't seem to have an issue clearly stating that they have a litmus test for these spots. You know, you have to be pro-abortion, you have to be pro this, pro that, basically anything anti-conservative. I mean, they want their people openly out there saying it in public, and that is the litmus test by that they seem to nominate people by. Yet, if you walked out and said, "Hey, I am pro-life, I am this, I am that," everybody would say that is and I don't feel as an outsider that our side plays the same way as the other side in that the other side doesn't seem to have any shame in laying all their cards on the table, and this is where we're at. But they will light your table on fire if you do that on your side. Yeah. How do we adjust to that? How do we do so when our side is not even allowed to really say what we think, when the other side openly flaunts it and there's no repercussions, there's no
right.
But if our side did it, you guys would be all over everything if you came out and said the opposite of what they're saying. How is that allowable?
Oh, it's not. It shouldn't be that way. We should be treated the same. But that's just one of the victories of the left. They've been able to put those litmus tests, and we've allowed it. So my counter to that is making sure that people really look at our history, what we've done. Some of the things that I tell people when I'm speaking, and I don't want to predispose or prejudge a case, is that I've been an activist since I was in college. Obama was named commencement speaker for my graduation in law school, and I and a lot of other close friends, we staged a protest. We did a counter commencement. We didn't go to our commencement. We didn't want to be honored at the same time that he was being honored for things that he had done already. That was in 2009 when it was his first year in office. So look at the things that we've done, and I think that gives you an indication of who we are. I'll take this opportunity. I was just endorsed by Texas Alliance for Life and Texas Right to Life. Those are things, they're important. They look at candidates, they look at what they've done, their history, and they've seen what I've been doing, what I stand for. And that's why I think it's also important when you get to this level, to the Court of Appeals level, at whether or not they have judicial experience. In this primary, I'm the only one that's ever been a judge that has had the tough job of sitting on that bench and making decisions. And as a judge, I had to take a stand against different people, organizations. For example, one of the cases I talk about is putting a restraining order or signing a restraining order on a hospital that was going to pull the plug on a child without giving the mom an opportunity to seek a second opinion or to, at the very least, take her child home to die with dignity in her arms. So those are the kind of things that I ask people to look at, the history, and obviously that's one of the reasons Texas Alliance for Life and Texas Right to Life endorsed me, because I stopped a big corporate hospital from going against parental rights, going against the will of a mother. So that's what I can say. You look at our careers, you look at our resumes, what we've done, and based on that, you're able to see what we stand for and how it is that we'll perform on the bench.
Roger that. For those that want to reach out to you, follow your campaign, see what you're doing, or talk to you, how do they do so?
So the easiest way is on Facebook. I'm on Facebook all the time. My handle is @JudgeFonseca. And you can also check out my website, fonsecaforjustice.com. That's FONSECA forjustice.com. And there's a link to Facebook, and any press releases are on there, pictures, videos, and whatnot. And if anybody wants to contribute to the campaign, you can obviously do that from there as well.
Good deal. Well, thank you so much for your accessibility. Yeah. I've enjoyed our conversations. I learned something every time I talk to you, and I appreciate you taking that time. Again, to you and all the candidates, this is a big intrusion into your family, your personal time, all of that. And so thank you for the sacrifice that you do. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Early voting is February 14th through the 25th, and Election Day is March 1st. We'll see you at the next one.